everyone, and welcome to this YouTube Live. I'm really excited to do this in a live platform because it is really great as an introductory class for those people that struggle with doing some right angle weave. This is some of the most simplistic right angle weave that you can do, that you can follow along with, you can ask questions, and you really can make it like everything your own. I'll show you a lot of different variations and options that you can do. If you don't want to do it as a necklace, you can go in and do it as a bracelet. You can do it as a set of earrings. But it allows you to practice this skill if you've really struggled with right angle weave. This design comes from Sheryl, one of our coworkers here at PotomacBeads, and Sheryl decided to take some tubelets home with her, which is what we're going to be using, and use them to design this Molly necklace named after her daughter. So we had the Marley and we have the Molly, and she's been doing a little series with her children's names that we are working on it. So this is the Molly necklace, and also it comes with a set of earrings, and we'll be checking out how to do that right angle weave. So if you have not gone in and checked out the material list, I'll go over it right now with you. Hello to everyone joining in. So hello from Florida, the UK, Virginia, New Jersey, from Munich, Germany, from Kentucky, Chicago, California. Yes, the Ocean City, New Jersey store is open. Hello from Texas as well, Georgia, Arizona, Sweden, Michigan, PA. I know we have some joining in also from Australia and from Trinidad. Happy Tuesday, exactly. Happy Tuesday to everyone joining in here and joining in on the chat. If you have never attended one of our live classes before, make sure that you subscribe here. So subscribe to this YouTube channel, that way you get live updates when we do decide to do the live videos. So I was actually going to do this video as a recording and thought, oh, it's a great intro right angle weave. Let's do it live, create that class setting, and allow people to ask questions, get some of their answers that they may have, and really teach how to conquer this stitch. So Cindy wants to know, what is Twitch? So if you were joining us on Facebook, I was just live on Facebook for the last 25 minutes. Tomorrow, or usually right after Facebook, I go on to Twitch. You can go to twitch.tv to follow us there. We utilize and use a number of different streaming platforms, and Twitch is one of them. The Twitch is kind of the behind the scenes look. You watch me not with completed projects, figuring out exactly how many beads go where. It's the steps and the fun banter that goes on in the chat room, and really an enjoyable time of almost like having somebody else in your craft area or your studio answering questions, giving ideas, naming projects, telling you what to use, deciding what's for dinner, and kind of catching up on what's going on this past week with friends. So that will be on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. I will be live on Twitch, so join there. And we are Eastern Standard Time. So hello also from the Dominican Republic and those states that I missed. Sorry about that. Hello to everyone joining in. So if you are joining in, my name is Allie. And I am with PotomacBeads, and we are going to be working on right angle weave today. Again, it's Sheryl's design, and for Sheryl's design, I'm going to give you some options of different materials that you can use, but you will be required to have some beads, obviously. Thread and needle are a must for this, so make sure that you have your thread and your needle. I'm going to be using Wildfire in the green color. You could also use white. I know Sheryl used white for her purple design, and she used the metallic violet and then the crystal slipperet etched. I'm going to be using my green thread because for my tubelet beads, which if you have not seen tubelet, they are a Potomac's exclusive, and they are a 6 by 2.8 millimeter. So they're larger. They were kind of the answer to the bugle bead. Bugle beads, everybody's afraid to use them because of their breakage, their sharp edges. So we decided to go ahead and create something in check glass that would be a great solution for it. So you can see my little example piece here. I'm going to be using the tubelets in 2 different colors. You can do it with 1 color. And if you do not have tubelets available, you can check out and use some 8/0 seed beads. So if you don't have the tubelets, grab some 8/0 seed beads. It is helpful if you use 2 different colors, which is intentional, not only because it makes the design prettier, but also because it helps you to learn where you are in that right angle weave. I'm going to be using the white teal luster in my design, as well as the white blue luster. So it's kind of a Picasso look and a mix of the two. In addition to that thread, and that's why I chose the green thread. In addition to the thread, you are going to need a needle. You can use a size 10 or a size 11 or 12. I have a size 10 on my first little starter piece here that I'll be showing and kind of picking up. You can use a 10 or a 12 for that. To take the wire and actually pull it off the thread, I prefer to use a thread zap, a cord cutter, so I have that handy as well. Since I don't even have my thread out yet, I'm going to do that with all of you. From here as well, I'm using some 4mm beads. So in Sheryl's original design, and keep in mind if you do ask a question, I promise I'll come back to it and answer and try to get to that question. Don't be afraid also to ask the questions again. And when I'm looking through the chat and answering it, keep in mind I'm about 30 seconds ahead on the recording. So if I don't answer right away or it seems like I'm delayed in answering, it's because I've already done that a while ago. So keep in mind the chat is a little bit behind the recording on my end, but I will answer and do some of those chats. So in Sheryl's design, I love her combination that she used the 4mm rounds along with the 4mm bicones. So she has the garnet, or I'm sorry, the amethyst color, and then the alexandrite color. So alexandrite rounds, garnet in the 4mm. I decided I would do mine in pearls. I'm a pearl person, I love pearls, and I thought it would be fun to show the variety of things that you can use in the stitch. So in my design here, I picked 4mm pearls, and I have the cream shiny, and then to complement that, I have the gold champagne in the Potomac crystal bicones. You can do all one color, you can do 2 colors, you can do 3 colors, and kind of check out what, if you want to do different colored patches along this, you can do that as well. So you're going to need some 4mm beads in addition to your tubelets. And then you can see I have a nice little pile here of my 11OC beads. The 11OC beads that I'm choosing to use are the silver lined gold AB. So I also use those in the Foxy necklace. So if you have some extra supplies from that, they're a great addition. Even if you are using the 8OC beads, 4 of them in place of the tublet, or if you are using a bugle in place of the tublet, you still want your 11 O's there. Otherwise, you'll see a fair amount of thread. So those are your materials list for it as well. Good idea to start your questions with Ellie's name so she sees it faster. Good idea, Denise. Yes, that is a wonderful idea. Also, just a little reminder that you can give a little thumbs up if there's a certain portion that you love. You can comment below. If you are watching this video after this live class, keep in mind you can, in YouTube, make the comments shown. So if you do want to stay involved in the chat and some of those questions and answers that are provided by our awesome bead group and bead family, make sure to look at those questions and the answers and the responses there. So fun, fun, fun. Yeah, the design does completely, Lisa said, I love designs that completely change with the different beads. Absolutely. And you can even do this multiple rows, so we'll go over that. So to get started, and then I forgot, you'll need a clasp. On Sheryl's clasp, she used a cup button here. I'm going to take mine up a notch, and I love pearls, and I love Claspgarten clasps. So I'm going to be using a Claspgarten netted pearl clasp in the gold plated, and that's going to be on the back. And I even love that I could use this if I wanted to, and flip it backwards and use this in the front. It is designed to be a 14 to 16 inch choker necklace, but it doesn't need to be. So feel free to kind of take your different interpretations on that. We are going to begin the project with approximately 5 feet of beading thread. We want to cut the thread and thread our needle. So number 1, I'm going to take the thread out of this other needle here. If you have a needle and it's a little bent up, that happens to the best of us. I actually today had a little, service as I put inside of a used tube some of my needles that were really kind of towards the end of their life. This one escaped. It probably shouldn't have, but I'll go in here and I'll kind of straighten out that needle. From here, I'm going to go in, and you can see that my pliers sit by a magnet, and I've had magnets actually attached to them, so I can just kind of magnetically put them on strips, and they still are semi-magnetized, so you can see, oh, it's like a magic trick. It picks up the needle. All right, from here, I'm going to get my wildfire beading thread. So when I pull out my thread, I usually keep my thread little, what's this called? My little thread gripper thinger. Everybody can comment and be like, oh, it's called a spool stopper. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, I usually keep this on the thread as I pull it. You can take it off. Do not throw it away. You will be sad. And what you're going to do is you're going to pull your amount of thread that you want. I usually say 5 feet, which literally is going to be a wingspan. I do not like to work with more than 5 feet of thread at a time, because what that tends to do then as I'm working with it is just cause me to get frustrated, get a little bit crazy, and I have so much extra thread that the potential to create knots is huge. So that being said, about 5 feet of thread, take my thread burner, take my actual thread, and what I'm going to do is burn the thread. Now, the top of your thread burner generally is not going to be that messy. I just did a project with some Eslon and used my burner even though I shouldn't have, so there's got a fair amount of gick on there. I'm going to burn through the extra thread here, removing it from my spool. Set it to the side because you may need extra if you want to do kind of a longer project. And then I'm going to pick back up those needle nose pliers that I used to flatten out my needle. Go ahead in and flatten out the end of your thread, which causes it to kind of fan out just ever so slightly. And then you can see I bring it up, actually I'll do it right here from this view so you can see. I bring my thread right up to almost my nose. And when I thread my needle, I needle the thread. So I don't thread my needle, I needle the thread. I keep the thread pinched between my thumb and my forefinger, and I push the needle, and surprisingly, you can usually see there's actually a front and a back to the opening in the needle space in the eye of the needle. I push the needle onto the thread and then pull the thread through. When I pull the thread through the needle, I try to make sure that I'm not at the very edges of the needle. So I'm not at the very top, I'm not at the very bottom of the needle. I try as much as possible to stay in the middle of the needle so I do not fray my thread at all. So that's one thing that I do. From here, then what I'll do is double the thread over, usually about 1.5 feet to 2 feet. And what I'm going to do to begin with is find a random bead. So chances are, if you're a beader, you have a random bead sitting somewhere that's not going to be included in your project. I love if I can find like a bright bead to do it. If not, just get this little silver bead here. Or champagne, I should say. I'm going to put the champagne on. Let it go down to the end of my thread here. And I'm going to come back through the design, so I'm not going to worry too much about having a really long tail. And I'm going to double the thread through that stop bead 2 times. So I'm taking my thread and I'm going through the bead from that short tail end to the long piece of thread 2 times. If you use a big eye needle, that works too. Same deal with a big eye. You kind of use, if anyone's not familiar with a big eye needle, Richard was saying that he uses a big eye needle. That's great for threading it. Basically, the whole eye opens up. So say if my paper here was a big eye needle, instead of, so this whole paper is a needle, instead of just the tiny little eye at the top, it's basically pinched together at the bottom, and this whole middle of the needle opens up as an eye. So if you do struggle threading the needle, check out the big eye needles. The only issue with the big eye needles that I have is that they don't have a super long life. Eventually they're going to split at the ends, and you almost look like you have a tiny little pair of tweezers because they usually split on one. But if you struggle with threading your needle, they are really, really, really helpful. So, fun like that. Slow down a little bit. I will slow down a little bit, Eva. So does everybody have materials? If anybody wants to list that they are actually doing the design with me versus going to watch it later, I do always recommend with any YouTube video, this is going from me fixing my toilet to figuring out how to get the lint out of my dryer easier. I always watch a YouTube video before doing, and then I watch again as well. So making sure that you are watching and then repeating. Again, if you are watching with us and hanging out with us today, you can use 8OC beads if you do not have the Tubelet beads. So we are doing a right angle weave. So I've actually done this live on some of our Twitch videos, and I am pulling out 1, 2, and 2 different colors of my Tubelet bead. So I have 2 different colors of my Tubelet bead here, and pulling those out, I'm just going to push my other materials off to the side. I like to have as much as possible. I'll have to post a picture later, so Eva believes me. My area is pretty clean right now. I've been pretty good since I'm the only one in the recording studio right now. I have been able to keep it pretty clean. I'm not rushing from one to another. All right, so going in here, we have our stop bead on, and we're gonna go in and create this right angle weave. I'm going to separate out just to hide a little bit of thread with my 11OC beads. So I have my 11OC beads here, and one question always that I get is, can I use 15s? Can I use 8s instead? You can. The larger bead you use, the more likely it is that thread will show. The 8s may hit one another along the sides of the design here. So your 8s may get to the point where they kind of tap in and hit one another. So if you can, as much as possible, stick to the 11 or go down to a 15. You can definitely use a bugle bead if you're looking at this. So if you are looking at the design, you can use a bugle. It's going to seem a little bit thinner and a little bit more lightweight. For this, I'm actually going to start with a triangle rather than a traditional right angle weave. For the start, I have the other half of my necklace already done actually. So I'm going to make sure that I start the same. I'm going to begin with my white blue luster. I'm going to add 1 of my 11O, 1 of my white blue luster tubelets, 1 11O, 1 tublet, and for a total of 3 tubelets. Once I have those 3 tubelets on, I have my 11O beads, oops, 1 too many. I have my 11O beads so that I have 1 for every tublet. So each tublet has 1 right before it. All right, so dropping these down, I'm going to drop them next to that stop bead. Now obviously they look straight right now, but I'm going to take my needle and thread starting at that stop bead and go back through the 11O one more time, the tublet, the 11O, and the second tublet. So I'm coming out with my needle and thread between the tublet and the third 11O. Because I have 3 beads on here rather than 4, guess what? 3 sides make a triangle. So we created a triangle rather than the right angle weave. From here, we are going to be creating squares. We're using the Tubelet beads. Right angle weave is done with a series of 4 sides. So whether or not those 4 sides are longer on some sides or shorter on some sides, I actually have a better beater on that, the varieties of right angle weave, so check that out. Coming out of the tublet here, I'm going to go in and do my first official right angle weave section. To do so, I'm going to be creating little boxes. I'm adding 1 11OC bead coming out of the tublet, and you'll notice that I have 3 of my alternate color. So I'm using the white teal luster. So I have 3 teal next to that blue. I'm going to add an 11O, another tublet, another 11O, another tublet, and this time 1 more 11O. Because I have on 4 sides that I want to my box, and remember we put on 3 11s at the start here, we have 4 beads. The first bead that is going to be part of our box is already attached to that little triangle. I'm going to let those all drop down next to my triangle. And then with my needle and thread in hand, I'm going to go back through that tublet that my thread is coming out of. What that's obviously going to do, like we did with the 3 beads, is when you do it with 4 beads, it pulls it into a nice, simple little cube or a little right angle weave. Why is it called right angle weave? Because at each corner on the interiors, you're creating right angles. That's how you get that right angle weave. So if you don't have tubelets, you can actually go in and use 3 or 4 8OC beads. From here, we want to create more boxes. So how do you create more boxes when you're going in? You create more boxes by buying more cardboard. No. You create more boxes. I know that was like a mom joke. I'm really good at mom jokes versus dad jokes where my kids think they just shake their head already. They're too young to kind of give me an attitude about it, but they just shake their head already. So I'm coming out of the bead that my thread was originally coming out of when I added my 3 new sides. I now have the left side of my box, the bottom of my box, the right side, and the top of the box. I'm going to sew back through the 11-0 and the bottom of the box. I'm going to sew through the 11-0 and the right side of the box. What was the right side of the box is going to be the left side of my new box. So I'm going to create another box here. And guess what? That is my new box. To create my new box, just like I did with the previous one, I'm adding 1 11-0 followed by 3 tubelets with an 11-0 after each. So I add my 1 11-0 because I'm coming out of a tubelet, so I need to add the 11, and then I'm finally finished here with 3 more of the tubelets. I have 4 of my seed beads because I have 4 of the sides for my box. So keep in mind as you're watching, if you have any questions, make sure to ask. Going in here then, I'm going to create my box by sewing back through the bead my thread is coming out of. My thread is coming out the top of the tube. I'm going into the bottom of the tube. Again, this was the right side of the last box. It is now going to be the left side of the new box. From here then, you're going to sew, so you're coming out again that right side of your box. You're going to sew back through the 11 and the tublet that are at the top of the box. Remember last time we sewed through the bottom, so you'll start to notice an alternating pattern. Then I'm going to sew down through the 11 and down through the tublet. I always want to be exiting out the right side of the box I just created. Whether or not that's at the top or the bottom, that's kind of, each row is going to be separate and going to be different. So as you're doing this, you'll have those 2 differences in the design. From here then, I'm going to continue with that right angle weave. Bugles are known to shred thread in many projects, so that's why we developed thread. Yep, so there's Nathan talking about the tubelets as well and why they came about. So from here also, the 11-0s are not essential. Again, what the 11-0s are doing is they're hiding some of the thread. If you want to downgrade to 15-0s, you're more than welcome to it. Is there any thread that's better to work with bugles? So Patricia, I would avoid working with some of the thermally bonded threads. So I would work with Wildfire or Fireline. Fireline, the one thing that I try to avoid when you're working with bugles is working with the size, what they call 4 pound. Go with a 6 pound because it's a little bit thicker. So I try not to go through and use 4 pound for a lot of things with crystals or with bugles because they do tend to have a little bit of a sharper edge. I prefer Wildfire because I can still work through all of my projects and get through it, and I love the green color like I'm using now. So coming out here, I'm adding an 11. I'm picking up my 3 designs again, or my 3 tubelets again. Remember, I'm switching colors now, so I'm creating a new box. The one that's on the right side is always going to be starting from the previous box, so that's why it's a different color. From here, you add your 11 tubelet, 11 tubelet, 11 tubelet, and then 1 more 11. Let that drop down to the previous boxes that you already made, and you're going to sew down then through that same tubelet. So again, the last time we were coming out the bottom, and coming out the top, and then we sewed into the bottom. This time we're coming out the bottom and we sew into the top. So there's going to be that constant change up of which size you are. So going through here then, go back and go through the 11, go through the bottom of the box. Last time we went through the top. And we're going to go through the 11L and come out the side. That's going to create our third box. So you can see you can do this whole design as a bracelet if you want to. What we are going to do after we go in and really start to do a number of different beads is we're going to go in and get this curvature. The reason that we're doing the curvature is because I want it to sit on my necklace or on my neck nicely. So in Sheryl's original design, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So she ended up with 11 boxes plus her 2 triangles on the side. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm going to keep making a couple more. I did this little starter piece also to show you how simple it is to add right angle weave together. So I'm going to do some speed beading here as you go in and catch up. And I use 0.006 of my wildfire more so than 8. The limitation is I tend to gravitate towards 15 OC beads. With the 15 OC beads, it's hard to fit more than 2 times with the 0.008. So that's why I go with a 0.006. So it depends on what style of beading and what size beads you use that is going to dictate, what size needle and actually what size thread you want. With a 0.006 wildfire beading thread, and the 0.006 is going to refer to the diameter in inches. It's a little covered up there, but that's the diameter in inches. With that, you can use a 10, 11, or 12 needle. With a 0.8, you can use a 10 needle. But what happens when you put it into the eye of the 12, which a 12 is going to be smaller, is a lot of times it'll actually kind of get pulled when you're working on it. So going in here, we're going to make another box. Oh, I need a couple more tubelets. Remember making the bracelet like this without the embellishments. Yep, so it's right angle weave. I actually have done this. I have it sitting here. I'm waiting to do a really simple design when we get the products in. But this is our cubes or our ignots. It is the exact same idea, but just really sparkly. I was going to do it with 1 layer, keeping it open for that open window, and I'll do a tutorial on that. The only difference when you're looking at this versus what we're doing now is I go back around that same right angle weave 1 more time just to add in a little bit more of that seed bead flare. Same exact thing, same exact right angle, lovely, lovely right angle weave. Right angle weave is a great stitch because it is so versatile. That's again why I want to show you how easy it is just to add these 2 pieces together. Coming out the bottom right hand side of the previous box, I'm going to go into the top of that right hand bead, which now magically, when I pull these in, becomes the left of the new box. Going in then, we're going through the 11 and the tublet, and then up again into the 11 and the tublet. You want to make sure when you are coming out the tublet to make each individual little box that you don't want to go through the 11O, because then you're going to be sharing an 11O and it's going to throw off your pattern. From here I need to get out a couple more of my blue. Need 1 more there, and then I'll show you how we're going to combine this 2 designs. How do you know what the right needle to go with the right beads? So when it comes to bead size and needles, most beads, in fact all beads that I use, everything down to the 15O, will fit a size 10 needle. However, when you are going through a 15O multiple times, more than 2 times, it starts to get very tight. The last thing you want to do if you're creating a design like this tiger time, let me grab it here. If you're looking for a design kind of like this tiger time, the last thing I want to do after I take the time to do a bezel is have one of these beads break. It's way better to have a size 15 needle on, even though the needle and thread are only going through these beads 2 times. I always prefer to use a 12 when I have the 15OC beads on a design, because it gives me the opportunity to go back and reinforce and to go back through. Otherwise, what I have to do is take the size 10 needle off and put a 12 on when I work through it. That was the Tiger Time design. The beads I'm currently using are Tubelet beads, and you're going into those. Linda says, Allie, I saw something Marissa posted about opaque crystals. Are those the 1.5 millimeters, or am I in the right area? Yes, so those are on the site. We actually haven't even really introduced them yet, so you guys are kind of hearing the first glance. And I'll show you my supply list that I'm going to be using to play with them. So we have some opaque crystals that we're starting to get in as well for a little bit of extra shine. I only have 2 of them up here with me in the recording studio, but these are two of them here in some of those different opaques. So I have the light coral, and if they do well in the tiny size, then we will probably increase the amount we carry in bigger sizes. These are 1.5 by 2 millimeter Potomac crystal rondelles. These are our most popular size because it's just tiny enough and fits in simple little beautiful spaces. You could actually use it in place of the middle bead here in the design. But this is the seafoam and the coral, so check those out. Going in here, I went back through that right-hand side. I flip the design as I'm working with it, you can tell, and I'm going to sew through the top of the cube, or that right angle, through the 11 and down the side. So the sparkly ones that I just showed are called Ignot, I-G-N-O-T. So those are an Ignot, and I believe they are 7 millimeter. They're a little bit bigger. I think they're 7 millimeter when you're looking at. So hello also to everyone joining in here. All right, so I have my right angle weave that I could keep going forever. This could be a great simple bracelet, but what I'm going to show you is how to embellish this right angle weave. In the meantime, what I would like to show you is how to go in and basically attach these 2 sides together. So in order to attach the 2 sides together, I kind of need to do one more right angle weave because my colors need to line up and go in place, or I can just have different colors in this section. I honestly don't think you're really going to notice. So I'm going to attach these 2 sections here together. The bracelet with the tiger is called Tiger Time. So that is the Tiger Time bracelet. If you go to our website, a lot of our recent videos are featured there, as well as on our YouTube page. On our website, we have a section that says how to bead, and there's free tutorials there. Check that out, and you can search in there for some of those. So here's right angle weave, and this is going to be our connection. So our connection to the right angle weave, very, very, very simple. So you can see I pretty much already have this whole half done. Coming out my last of my tubelet here, I'm going to sew over and create a new cube or a new unit by connecting the 2 units together. You can see I already have the left of the unit, and I'm going to go in and create and connect to the right. So all I need are my floor and my ceiling, or my top and the bottom of my box. I'm going to add my bottom after I added an 11L, add one more 11L, reach over to the other side, go up through that bead on the other side, through that tubelet. Then what I'm going to do is add one more 11L, one more tubelet, and one more 11L. From here, just like we've been doing, I'm going to sew through the tubelet, give a nice tight pull, and that's going to clear up and end my little connection there. So this is super easy to add on to right angle weave, to add more beads that you need to. And now what I'm going to do is continue to sew to get back so I can show you how you're going to embellish this right angle weave. I'm sewing through the 11L, the tube and the 11L that are at the bottom, and I'm going to sew through the tubelet and come out. Instead of adding my next portion of right angle weave, we're going to pretend we already did that and we're on our way back. So we're on our way back in the design here. And as I'm on my way back now, I'm done with my tubelets, so let's pick those up. I'm done with them for now until I do the sides of my necklace. So I'll clean those up, move them out of the way. And how would you make this a necklace? That's what we are getting into. So we are making these into a necklace as well. So from here, originally you would have none of this embellishment. You would keep going on and you wouldn't have any turn or curvature. What I'm going to be doing is show you how to do the embellishments. We're going to turn it kind of to the side. Let me tuck in the extra beads that I have here already finished. And we're going to start building almost like a ladder for the embellishment. Get the end of my needle. Hopefully everybody's with me right now. Everybody's with me, right? Okay. And what I'm going to do now is get out my 4mm beads. So whether or not you are using 4mm rounds, 4mm crystals, bicones, all bicones, you made the necklace that I have on, which is the Swarovski flower necklace, and you have extra, go ahead and grab them. You can do each little section a different color. So many different varieties and things to think about. So I have some champagne bicones here, and I'm going to do like Sheryl did in her design. And you can see the start of mine here, kind of under my head, is a combination of pearls and bicones. So I always like the colors of green and gold together. So we're using kind of that green and creamy gold colors together. Coming out the right angle weave, I'm always going to be sewing into the sides of my box. So I'm not sewing into the top or the bottom of the box at all as I add my embellishment. So let me go through and undo my thread a little bit. When you undo your thread, same deal, if I'm making my tail a little bit shorter, try to hold it so your thread is in the middle of that eye of a needle so you're not scraping the top or the bottom of the thread. I'm going to grab one 11-0. Now you can see I have pearls at the bottom there, so I know I'm going to have a pearl at the top. One pearl, one 11-0, one crystal, one 11-0. So there's my pattern. So I'm adding 2 size 4mm beads, one round, one bicone. I'm going to stretch this across the box. So you can see it's getting stretched basically from one side of the box over to the other side. Coming out the top right side of the box, I'm going to go into the bottom left side of the box. And I'm going to pull it in just a tiny bit further and closer so you can see this portion of the design. Going in here, I'm going to sew just through the right-hand side of the box. Remember, I'm never going through the top or the bottom as I embellish. I can very easily, and I can embellish more on the side, but for this design in particular, I'm just going through the sides of the box. When I'm coming out the top of the box now, I'm going to add one of my 11-0 seed beads, one of my pearls, since I'm doing an alternating pattern where I have the pearls to the top and the bottom. See that 11-0 that's there? We're going to share the 11-0. So I'm taking my needle and thread from the left side towards the right, sharing this design and that middle bead. Set the bead down. I usually hold this up as I'm working on it and embellishing. So you just want to make sure to give a nice tight pull so you don't see any extra thread. Coming out the bottom then, you can see easily I need to add a crystal. So the crystal gets added, the 11-0 seed bead gets added after. And now I'm going to go back through that right side tube that my thread was coming out of. And I'm done with the embellishment on this particular box. Give a nice tight pull. There I have that embellishment done. Very, very, very simple. You can see when Sheryl did the design as earrings, she pulled even tighter and kind of pushed those beads out to the exterior. And it looks different because it's on the diamond. So it's still right angle weave, but it's sitting on that diamond. Now that I'm done embellishing that box, I need to get to the next one. I need to get to the right side of the box. So I'm going to go through the beads at the top, 11-0, tubelet, 11-0, down through the tubelet on the right-hand side of the next box. Now you may say to me, couldn't you do the embellishment as you're doing the right angle weave? You totally can. So you could have built this embellishment right after you make your box before going on to make your next box. I wanted to teach the right angle weave prior to doing so. So how do I spell the tubelet that you're using? Thank you everybody who already is on that to respond to Janice. You guys are Great, great helpers. Coming out that bottom tube there on the right-hand side, I'm going to reverse the pattern basically from the bottom to the top. So here on my 11-0, I'm putting my pearl. This is a 4mm Czech pearl. Then I'm putting my 11-0. Then I'm putting my bicone and my 11-0. You'll notice, because you're coming out of different sides always in the right angle weave, kind of always starting with a pearl. From here, go to the left side, and if you're starting at the bottom of the right side of the box, you're going to go into the top of the left side of the box. Coming out the bottom then, I'm going to add a pearl and an 11-0. That 11-0 that's already there, we're going to share it. I'm going to go from the left towards the right. Oops. And pick up just that 11-0 seed bead. And not the whole rest of the end of the design. From here, add one of your 4mm bicones, or you could add the same 4mm bead. Again, you don't have to do the variety. Make sure you have an 11-0 after, and then sew through that bottom tubelet that your thread was coming out. Give a nice tight pull, and you'll notice how the flowers are sitting right there. So you can see it as the straight line there. I'm going to speed bead. So I'm going through the bottom 11-0s and the bottom tubelet, up through the next tubelet design. And then here at the top again, I need to do the pearl. So I'm going to do pearl, seed bead, crystal, seed bead, let that drop down. And remember, if you need to, you can always watch this after the fact. Now, I did show how I went in and I added 2 pieces together. So this little section is already finished, and that's why it has that curvature to it, because we are going to manipulate the right angle weave to do so. You can see there's a little gap here between each of the little right angle units. That is the reason that we are able to go in and get that nice curvature. From here, I go through the center bead, and my next 4, add a seed bead, back up through that tubelet. So the tubelets that are at the right and left of the little, cubes that you made, those little right angle weave units, they have a fair amount of thread going through them. So if you are doing this with bugles, you're definitely going to want to use a thinner, like 0.006 wildfire beading thread rather than the 0.8. It might get a little crowded in there. So the pearls, are they glass pearls? I'm wondering about the coating. Does it come off easily? I've used wax pearls earlier and regret the choice. They lost the coating. So Eva, these are Czech glass pearls. I have been very, very pleased with the Czech glass pearls. We used to, years ago, carry the Chinese glass pearls. Those I was not happy with. You will always have, because of the way that the pearls are coated, you might have a little bit of kind of residue that kind of sticks on. By the time you add the beads on, you don't see that at all. The reason that's there is because the pearls are coated on long strands of fabric, of thread, and that little tail is what is attached kind of as they separate out the pearls. So that's their difference. You can also feel free to use freshwater pearls for this. That would be beautiful as well. So going through the design here, I'm just adding in the last couple. And then I'm going to show you how we work through getting the curvature, as well as, oops, I don't need that 11 there. I'm sharing the 11. Getting the curvature, and then also doing the last portion of the design. So doing the whole band of the design. Going in here, I need to share that 11-0 seed bead. Share a crystal. And how many beads you do to the center of the design, if you're doing the choker look, how many boxes you do, that is completely up to you. Going through then the bottom to get to the next box. Going up the side here. and then coming through. Those of you just joining in, this is a lovely design called the Molly necklace by Sheryl. And if you are in London, Joyce, you can go to our EU site. So you can go to PotomacBeads.eu and you can shop within the EU. It ships out of the Czech Republic. And Teresa would be happy to send you beads from there. And when you are doing the design, there are so many different variations of how to make this happen and this design look. So don't think you have to make it a necklace. You can make it into a bracelet and just continue with the straight and not cinch the sides like we're going to do. So that is always an option. Coming in here, I'll finish my last couple boxes as you're kind of watching. Oh, be nice if I do the right bead order. And I do really like following Sheryl's design idea, how she did every other. So in her beautiful purple example here, she started with the bicones, then the crystal round, a lighter round and a darker bicone. So that is always an option as well if you want to keep all crystals. And then also make it a garden and a flower patch. You could do it all with different size beads as well. So, okay. Do it in then. We have here. And one of the things that I love about this design from Sheryl is it's a very good, friendly beginner bead weaving class that looks really complicated, but it's not. It's quite easy once you look at it and get the hang of it and realize that it's just a repeat of some simple steps. So you're doing the same things over and over again to create this nice design while learning embellishing and right angle weave on it as well. So going in here, I'm coming out the bottom and going into the top. If this is currently too fast for you speed-wise, go back and watch the rest of the video because I'm certainly happy to explain more as well, but that way we get to the next step without our video being super, super long. You'll also notice I've been doing a lot of talking. Comes to me naturally, and my kids are really good at it too. But if you do have any questions too, you can post after the fact, but definitely watch the video ahead of time. You can see how much I've progressed making this piece while still talking and showing how, while still talking and showing how to do it, as I almost do a mistake there. So it's very quick once you get the hang of it and once you learn how to do it. I know somebody's gonna catch it. So let me take my needle and thread off. So rather than sewing back through the design, this was meant to be, rather than sewing back through the design, I am going to take my thread out of my needle. There's too many strands going through that tubelet bead for me to try to go back through and make sure that I'm not getting my thread that I'm working on twisted and mixed up within that needle. So I'm going to go back here, take this guy apart, and then after I take it apart, and again, you can see how nice and easy it lays, just very flat. You can also do what I did here where I just turned and connected the last four to make that turn. I could do the same thing here where the middle lays straight and I can only connect to the ends. So I'm going to go back in now quickly and needle my thread. Making sure it goes back on there. Sometimes when you take the thread off the needle, you need to go back in, flatten out the needle again, or the thread again, and put it back on the needle. Okay. Now from here I'll put a pearl in this time so we make sure that we have the correct pattern. And you'll notice I realized it right away. So if you happen to do the same error, take the needle off the thread, which can be a pain, but if you're like Richard and use the big eye needles, it makes it a little bit easier. But that way you don't regret it and have your needle and thread all twisted inside of those tubelets, since there's so many pieces of thread running through each of the side beads of our right angle weave. From here then, push that towards the top, make sure to give a nice tight pull. Go through the bottom. All right, now I'm on my last little section here. So I'm gonna go up through. I have my pearls at the top. Oh good, it worked out nicely that I finished with the pearls on the top as well. I didn't think about that as you're going in your designs, if you want to count and make sure that you're going to have that equal amount. That's one thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you want that odd count if you do want the sides to match. If you are doing a variety like I've done here, where you have 2 different shapes or sizes of beads. You could also do the same thing with a 3mm. So if you want to do the same exact design, it's not going to affect it at all. If you want to do it with a 5mm, I would leave out the 11 seed beads on the side, but it will pucker up a little bit. 5's kind of an off size anyway. Okay. So going in here. And here's, Eva, you were asking about that little pearl. There's a little tail. When I pull it through there, that tail pretty much breaks off. Going through, I add my 11 seed bead. Go through and add my crystal and my 11. Back through the right-hand side here. Make it look so simple. Thank you, Patricia. That is my goal. And it is very, very simple, I promise. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run up through my beads at the top here. I'm going to run through that first bead on the side of the triangle group. I'm going to run through the beads here at the end. And I'm going to also run through, move this over my other side and my other needle over to the other side now. And I'll show you the pattern. I won't take the time on this side to add the clasp because I already have it on the other side, so I'll go over that with you quickly, and then I'll show you how we're going to go in and make it so it has the curvature to it. So from here on the other side, you can see I have my stop bead here that I had on my design because I worked backwards. I'm coming out the tubelet bead here, and I grabbed a pearl. So I'm out the tubelet and I have a pearl on the design. Then I have an 11L, and then my connection of tubelet, 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 pearl, tubelet, 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 pearl. In Sheryl's design, she did all tubelets with an 11 seed bead in between. And I think hers is the dusty mauve 11 Miyuki, I believe, is the seed bead she has between that metallic violet and the crystal slipperit matte, or etched, sorry. So I added in the pearl just for the design. When you get to the end of the design here, and you're coming out your last 11 seed bead, if you have a clasp, and I'm using the Claspgarten clasp in the crystal net, so I won't make you guys watch me thread that whole other side. I'll do that afterwards. And then Amber will take a beautiful picture. Okay. So here at the end, there's my Claspgarten clasp end. I'm going to grab from down below, I'm going to disappear for a second. I forgot to get out my wire guard. And looks like I'm going to grab a brass one because I'm low on gold. So I have my wire guardian, or my wire protector, and that's just an antique brass color. I want to make sure it fits. Some of the Claspgarten clasps have really tiny loops, so this one fits comfortably. If I can get it through, I always want to use it. I'm going to go up through the wire protector. Down through the other side. Attach back on my Claspgarten clasp here. Go back through the 11 and back down through the design. Prior to doing that, what I want to do is I want to add one more 11 seed bead. I'm going to go back through the 11 between the 11 and the tubelet and reinforce my clasp. Trying not to get my thread all twisted like I just did. This is the live things that happen. I get my tubelet out of there. And there we go. All right, I'm going to pull this thread tight so I don't have a lot of extra thread showing. So down through the other side of the wire guard. So that way there's always at least 2 strands through the clasp area. Go back through the 11 and then down into the design. When you're going down into the design, you're also reinforcing this area of thread that's going to be holding the whole side of the design. So that's going to be how you go in and add the clasp on. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then this thread is going to be long enough that I can bring it back to this stop bead, tie the two off together, and finish off the design. Now, how do you get that curvature? So if you have not done any of the curve yet, and you have the long piece here, and you've gone in and you're coming back down through the piece, here's where we're going to get caught back together. So when you're looking at it here, imagine, just imagine, put on your imagination hats, and if you can tell, I did some early elementary education in college, so you're going to put on your imagination hats. And what we're going to be doing is going back and pretending we're coming back down through the clasp here. I'm going to, coming out this last bead here, pretend that I just came out of my final pearl on the end. And I'm going into my tubelet there. The tubelet then, my thread is coming out of, so just as if I was here coming out my tubelet. What I'm going to do to get my curvature at the top and to have it sit nicely is string through the entire top section. If I want to do it a bracelet, don't string through it, then it'll be nice and flat. So I'll put it on flat so you can see the design idea here, flat. And I would hold it up on the green screen, but then it disappears because it's green. And what I'm going in and doing is sewing back through my entire top row. When I sew through the entire top row, I'm catching on to both 11-0 seed beads that are between the tubelet beads. Going right along the line, sewing through my 2 11-0s, my tubelet, my 2 11-0s. I'm not adding any beads in, I'm sewing directly through them. When you can see already is what's happening is it's pulling that top together a little bit. Going in, making sure you're connecting. And this is another reason it was important not to go back and sew through the 11-0s by accident as you were adding in your embellishment. Going in here now, I'm going to go through the last tubelet where I've already done this. Whoop, don't come up through your embellishment. So this is the 11-0 I've already done. So now my top is completely curved and has that nice curvature to it. Now I need to do my bottom. So if I've gotten to the point here where I've come back around, I'm in the bottom, I'm coming out my last tubelet, go through my 11-0, and what I'm going to do is add in 2 11s. In her design, Sheryl squeezed in there an extra 11 at the top and then a crystal at the bottom. It forced it to sit a little bit funky. I'm ignoring the crystal at the bottom. If you want to, you can go back in and embellish the bottom of the design. It is Molly versus Marley. So yes, so the Marley bracelet that I did under Sheryl, she's from South Africa, so she has this lovely mix of South African English accent, and I thought she said Marley, but she said Molly. So now we had to go in and name this one the Molly design. So going in here, I'm going to squeeze down to the bottom of the piece, going through the right angle weave, so you can see how versatile and easy that right angle weave is to kind of adapt and sew back through. Going to connect on to the 11-0 seed bead. So just as if I was coming out my 11-0 and my tubelet, I'm going to add 2 more 11-0s along the base there, then sew through the next 11 tubelet along the bottom. Go through the first 11, and if I would have been doing like the top, I would have not added any seed beads. Here at the bottom, I'm going to add a seed bead. If you want it to curve really, really quickly, you're going to add 2 seed beads. So my fear with my curving 2 seed beads is that I'm going to get it really, really curved. One is going to allow me to have a little bit more relaxed. I'll go back in after the fact, take off that stop bead and take off 2 of those. So right here I'm going to go in and I'm going to add 1 11-0, sew through the next beads in line. Coming out the 11, sew through the next 11, tubelet 11. So just simply because I'm adding 1 11 here to the bottom, that's what's creating that curvature. What I'll do actually, thinking about it, this is a much smarter idea, as I get to the end, so I have more of that curve towards the end of the design, I'll go back now for these last couple and add 2. 1 and 2. If you wanted to sit a little bit more relaxed, just continue with 1. 2 11-ohs go on. Go through, 2 more. 2 11s go on. And at this point, coming out the project, when I came out the other side, that's when you would add your other strand to your other side. So that's when you would add the band for the necklace on the other side. 2 beads go on. You can see I'm getting short on thread here. The nice thing is I have more on the other side. And if you need to add thread, you can always add thread very, very easily with this right angle weave. And kind of hide it and tuck it in a bead. Going up here, 2 more 11s go on. And that finishes up my project here. When I would be coming out the top now, I'd be coming out the top with that other bead right on the side. So you can see how I have 1 in the middle here, and then I started to do 2s along the outer edges so the sides matched in length. When you put this on, it has this beautiful, beautiful curvature to it. So I'll hold it up, it'll actually disappear a little bit, which is going to be sad. So let me take off my current necklace here. I'll put on Sheryl's Marley because it's purple, so it won't disappear on the camera. So here's that Marley design. And this one here is right about 15 inches. When you're looking at it, if you need it to be a little bit longer, make it a little bit longer. You can also do more of the right angle weave units. Keep that in mind. And then same thing here, it's gonna disappear. But you can at least see a little bit how it's sparkling, about how the green one is going to sit as well. If you do want to match a pair of earrings, so simple. It's just that little right angle weave. So you can go into that right angle weave right here, like Sheryl did, and all she did with a wire guard and a wire protector was do her single right angle weave section. Then she went into the top and the bottom of the design here. So if this is my top and the bottom, or sorry, right and left here, adding in the design, then in one corner, drop a little crystal briolette with 3 seed beads, come back up, go up to the top, add a wire guard, and your earring is finished. So it's really, really easy to be able to take this design from something that, again, looks complicated, but is not. All I have to do then is continue on to add the other side of my necklace to finish up the design. It's going to be really, really easy then to adapt this to anything that you want it to be. If you want it to be a bracelet, if you want it to be earrings, you can see how lovely it looks on the wrist as well to do so. So you can really have fun with it, getting in and changing up the design and changing up the materials. Chances are you have projects galore, but you also probably have beads at home that you can adapt to the design. Again, if you don't have tubelets, you can try some bugles. If you don't have bugles, you can try some 8/0 seed beads. You can even do it with 11/0 seed beads for a completely different look. In that case, I would use 5 seed beads for each side of my box. So each box would have a total of 20 seed beads rather than your 4 tubelets. Or it would have a total of 12 8/0 seed beads rather than the tubelet beads. So there's always differences, there's always changes that can be made, and there's always opportunities to make it your own design. When you're looking through too, how many seed beads would you add at the end of the loop for the button closure? So for the button closure, generally speaking, I add about 28 11/0 seed beads is my count for that. So when I'm doing a button closure, let me grab here. When I'm doing the button closure like Sheryl did, I usually have 28 beads that I like to add. And we'll see how many she did. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So she did 25 for hers. 25 would be a good number as well. It's going to fit over. And then in her design, she just came out the end, did 1 seed bead, made the loop, and on the other side has the cup button, putting a little crystal on the top of the design as well. So if you liked the design, make sure you can, even during the video right now, do a little thumbs up. Also, if you haven't, please subscribe. That way you don't lose or don't forget to join us live whenever we do go live. If you do want to join me more on live, you can also check out our other platforms on Facebook, as well as our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. All of those awesome people commenting on the side are awesome contributors to that Facebook group as well. We'll help out questions, answer anything that you may have, give ideas, give advice, and really inspire you to continue with the craft. In addition, you can check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv, and I will be live there Thursday at 1 o'clock, going through brainstorming and creating some new designs for new YouTube videos. As always with the videos, I always encourage you to have fun. Beading should be a therapy and it shouldn't be stressful. Hopefully this was a great idea sparking session for you, even if you know how to do the right angle weave. Go through all of your stash, rummage around, see if you have the supplies, and if not, we're happy to ship them to you either from our EU warehouse, PotomacBeads.eu, as well as PotomacBeads.com. We always, after the video, will add little links below to shop with us online, as well as a link to the landing page on our website, which will have all the supplies listed. As always, everyone, thank you guys so much for joining in. If you did miss the start, remember you can always watch it again. It will be on our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe if you haven't and give me the little thumbs up. I love doing the lives, so let's continue them. If I get enough feedback, I can get others to be influenced as well to have me go live more often. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or morning, depending on where you're tuning in from.